Hello, my name is Scribble, and welcome to the draft review slash season recap of the Seoul Draft League. So, if you have not seen the finals game that we played versus Scion, be sure to check that out because I will be spoiling the result in 3, 2, 1. We won the finals. We are the champions. So, this is going to be sort of like a season retrospective and also like just my thoughts on the team, our draft, and various sets we've brought to the different games. I don't really know where this video is going to be going necessarily, but if you just want to hear me ramble into a mic about Pokemon for a while, then that's what you're going to be getting here. So in my friend group, we have a tradition after a draft league ends to post a review of the team we use and all the individual Pokemon. So I figured we'd do that. But first I did want to just go through the different builds we had throughout the season and then just like, I don't know, look for some highlights. Maybe pick out what our best sets were. Maybe look at some interesting stats. I already picked out a couple things to talk about that I have written down next to me. But other than that, it will just be like just like rambling as usual, as most of these videos are anyway. Alright, so, yeah, this season, I think we've been the favorites to win the season, or at least top 2, like, consistently. We won our first 5 weeks, and then we lost our last 2 in preliminary rounds, but we got our runbacks on both of the people we lost to in playoffs. So, we end this season with beating every other person in the league, which is actually pretty rare for draft leagues because it's very rare to go undefeated in a league because Pokemon is high variance, and so even the best players, their win rates are I wouldn't say very low, but I mean like relatively low compared to other competitive games. So we had a 7-2 record by the end of it, because we won 5 regular games, lost 2, and then won 2. And that's definitely on the higher end. So definitely happy with that. I guess let's just go through. We'll take a walk down memory lane with all these matches. Our first week versus Mr. M was probably the most insane game of the season, and also like one of the most insane games I've ever played in general. Yeah. So if memory serves me right, we kind of like fell asleep at the wheel a little bit. We didn't think about physical Dragapult, which is just like stupid. And so we got our Tinglu worn down. We lost our Scarf on Annihilate for some reason. Like we got greedy trying to switch in on Defog, but we just got hit by a knockoff. Zapdos missed 2 Heat Waves. Tinglu dodged a lot of Will-O-Wisps though, which is another... Yeah, Zapdos missing Heat Wave and Tinglu dodging Will-O-Wisp were 2 of the big themes of this season. Yeah, that first game we almost lost to Pikachu. And I never thought in my draft league career that I would ever be scared of a Pikachu, but this week definitely... we were definitely in danger of losing to that Pikachu. Agility, upper hand, light ball, volt tackle was crazy, because that upper hand would just ruin my Comfey. But our Comfey clutched up that game. I believe we won with 4% left on Comfey, and that was our only Pokemon left, which was it was just insane. Definitely, that was probably the most memorable game of the season for me. I mean, like, what else is there to say? I was getting completely cooked by a Pikachu, but luckily Deoxys clutched up with okay, it wasn't like necessarily specific to Deoxys. We just got the 50-50s right that we needed to, and we won the game. All right, so after that, we had to like lock in a little versus Pharaoh, just so, because we had a very, like, even though we won the first week, we needed to play a little more consistently, go in with a more clear game plan. This was our first dedicated lead in Metagross, and it did its job pretty well. This was also the start of the start of my journey with Alolan Executor, which is one of my favorite Pokemon. Like, one of my favorite Pokemon that I used this season. I've definitely grown to love it a lot. That's a great thing about Draft League, is you get attached to Pokemon that you never would have otherwise. I always thought Alolan Executor was pretty funny, but now that I actually got to use it, I definitely really enjoy it, and I honestly think it's a pretty good low-tier pick. I would definitely draft it again. This Endure Custat Berry stuff it's just really nice to have in Gen 9 when there are so many sets that you need like an emergency button to stop. This game we also brought Banded Annihilate, which was pretty cool. It's not something you see super often. Oh, and Offensive Tentacruel as well. I forgot about this. Yeah, this game was pretty smooth. Nothing super crazy happened other than Alolan Executor got a kill. I was happy with that. It got like a kill and 3/4. I think it also like heavily dented the Gyarados after killing the Excadrill. After that, we played Cypher, and I believe Annihilate got all 6 kills in this game. I think that's right. Yeah. So, like, this game was, like, defined by, Cypher's Tornadus, which was, it was a Terra Tornadus, so it's, like, really good, and, I just did not bring a Flying Resist. Like, I benched my Zapdos, when realistically, I shouldn't have. Like, I probably didn't really need this Comfy set. I think a Zapdos with, like, my concern with Zapdos is, or it was that I would just get walled by our Chaladon, and, like, our Chaladon could set up with Electro Shots on me, but I think I could have ran, like, a Charge Pressure set on Zapdos. So, like, the Charge Special Defense boost will cancel out the Electroshot Special Attack boost, and then have Special Defense investment, and then Pressure will stall out Electroshots or Draco Meteors if it has that as well. And I think we could have outlasted it like that, because our Chaladon doesn't have Recovery and Zapdos does. And then especially defensive Zapdos definitely would have been much better for the Tornadus. So if we had to rematch Cypher in playoffs, I definitely would have brought that set. I didn't mention it in, like, any videos after that, just in case, because I didn't know if we would have to play Cypher again. And, yeah, but I thought of that set, like, maybe a few days after the Cypher game. It was probably when I was recording my my battle or replay analysis, something like that. But I thought of it shortly after the game. I think that sort of Zapdos set would have been much better than Comfy here. And spoiler alert, I have not really enjoyed Zapdos that much this season, but I definitely think this was a use case for it. Speaking of Pokemon I have not enjoyed, this was Noivern's one and only appearance of the season. Remember Noivern, guys? Yeah, so Noivern, all it did was it got sent onto the field and then got crit and died from full. That is all it did this season. It was like an emergency exit, like Golisopod's ability, or an eject button. That's all we used it for. So shout out to Noivern. It did not click a single move, but it got us a free switch. So there you go. The Annihilate set was really strong, though, especially behind the screen support with Deoxys. We got that paralysis on Tornadus, which was huge. Then versus Revius, this is probably like, is this the? I'm trying to think what's the weirdest set we've brought this season. This might be it. I have to look at the other teams again, but this is definitely a very unconventional use of an Annihilate, like a maximum physical defense set, and this still got 2 kills, I think. Like, it just had enough damage output to do what I needed it to do. It got up rocks pretty easily. It spin blocked the Great Tusk. Oh yeah, this game there was like a Petra run that got to like plus 1,000,000 because of nasty plot and weakness policy, but Deoxys hit Psycho Boost and deleted it from the game. And we had like this super strong Calm Mind Comfy win con, but Comfy, it didn't really need to do that. It just sort of, it got the last kill on Meowscarada, so that was nice. But other than that, definitely this Annihilate set was the star player, I think. This was actually also Zapdos' best game. It got 3 kills in this, and it did its job. So like that's sort of like where the bar is at for Zapdos. After that, we played Soul, and I think this was a pretty clean game in terms of prep from us. I think this is probably the game we prepped the best for, because it just felt like Soul struggled to get anything going versus this build, because we had this Alolan Executor that stonewalled his Ogerpon Wellspring. Facade on Ting-Lu made sure it didn't become passive after it got burned, which we knew was definitely possible, like from the Rotom or the Darkrai. Talonflame stopped Iron Valiant from doing anything crazy. It also basically locked the Valiant into like a Specs variant, because booster speed is really tough into a Galewing's Talonflame. The priority from Comfy was really strong versus his Valiant and Darkrai. Just super effective Draining Kiss, and then Giga Drain for Wellspring as well is also... That's a lot of the word well, but you know what I mean. But definitely the biggest thing was the Scarf Terra Ghost Annihilate, when his only Ghost Resist was Darkrai. And like this was just impossible for him to answer late game. When everything was weakened, then like there was no Ghost Resist anymore. Darkrai's already barely a Ghost Resist. I mean, Darkrai's got some bulk, but it's an offensive Pokemon. You don't really want it to be switching into attacks too often. So this is probably our best build, I think. Just because I liked how the team actually worked together the most here. We had Annihilate was our main win con, this Scarf Cleaner set. We had like a Revenge Killer Deoxys, which is what we use Deoxys mostly as, but that's not a bad thing. It's very good at doing this job of just like a Life Orb attacker. Then versus Tristan, this was definitely a terrible build. Okay, maybe terrible is an exaggeration, but I think this was not our best work. I mean, you can see there was already a mistake on this build. This is the only like real mistake we had in all our builds. We just forgot to change Chimeko's item of Light Clay after we took screens off of it. Although in hindsight, we probably should have had screens on it, because then Chimeko could have actually done something. I mean, it had Healing Wish, but screens I think would have been much better. Protect on Annihilate was just not good. We needed Encore or Taunt for the Corviknight. And then like a Hazard's Deoxys. Like this is what Deoxys is most known for in standard singles, but in draft it's just kind of a waste of the best Pokemon on your team. Like if I want Stealth Rock and Spikes, I can just put them on Ting-Lu, and then I can use Deoxys for something else. I can actually make use of its absurd speed stat and like insanely strong stab move. Do you know Psycho Boost and alright, so like consider like a Steel type, right? So Psycho Boost and then Deoxys' like strong neutral coverage, like Ice Beam. So Steel resists Ice Beam, right? And it also resists Psycho Boost. Wait, no, what am I? Wait, okay, sorry. Not a, this is a bad example. Whoa, what the, okay, I don't know what I am waffling about right now, but the point is that Psycho Boost is stronger as a resisted attack than some neutral hits. That's what I wanted to say, because Psycho Boost has an effective 210 base power when you factor in stab. So if you have that, you get 105, and that's stronger than like Ice Beam, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, like the common coverage moves that Deoxys has. It's like only Focus Blast and Superpower that are better than a resisted Psycho Boost if they're neutral. Whoa, okay. Sorry for stammering a little there. Yeah, this build was just kind of bad. We had Heavy Slam on Tinglu, but as you know, in the semifinals game rematch versus Tree Stain, we found out that Heavy Slam was actually just worthless and a wasted move slot. Yeah, not our best work. Alolan Executor was probably the best set we brought here, like, unironically. Then we had an even worse build versus Scion in the last week of preliminary rounds, but that's kind of just the nature of trying to force a low tier 1-pointer to win the game when it was never going to. Like, the tools just weren't there, and like, yeah. I think this Trick Room Alolan Executor could have done something, but the Electros caught me off guard. Everything else is, like, fine, but, yeah, just, like, Chimecho was basically a dead team slot here, and then it kind of compromised the strength of everything else. Then, in semifinals versus Tree Stain, we had a much better build. We cleaned up the mistakes, like, we actually brought a Water Resist with Assault Vest Tentacruel, like, literally the most special defense we could have. To switch into the Walking Wake and also the Venusaur, which was nice. We put Light Screen on Zapdos instead of Eerie Impulse, that way it could support Annihilate and Deoxys better. We also changed our Deoxys set to a setup weakness policy variant, and this just swept. It didn't, like, sweep all 6, but it killed 4, and it basically just won the game, and then Annihilate picked up the Straggler Walking Wake. Yeah, I was very happy with this Deoxys set. So it's not the first time I've brought a weakness policy Deoxys set to a semifinals game. Shout out to those who know, but that was a different Deoxys. I did it with Deoxys Defense once, and that's one of my favorite draft sets I've ever used. So this was very reminiscent of that, so that made me pretty happy, and I was definitely happy it worked. Deoxys is I'll save that for the review. We got one more team to go over. Then our finals game, I also liked this build. In hindsight, Light Clay and Light Screen on Comfy is probably unnecessary. I don't think we really needed this because Annihilate was already specially defensive, and Tinglu had special defense. Metagross with Assault Vest, Tentacruel is mainly specially defensive. Like, Light Screen didn't do a whole lot for us, especially because we didn't have a ground resist on yeah, we just didn't have a ground resist in the 6 we brought. So I think what would have been better is having Air Balloon on Comfy and then a different 4th move. Maybe Leech Seed, maybe Knockoff, maybe Taunt. I don't know, U-Turn even, maybe. But the point is Air Balloon would have given us a switch into Garchomp, or at least made it a little less scary, especially if it didn't have any coverage moves. Because then we'd be immune to Dragon naturally, and then the Air Balloon would give us a ground immunity, so there's a chance we just completely walled the Garchomp. But other than that, I was definitely happy with how everything else worked. Tentacruel traded with the lead Electros and just got rid of that, so that was very nice. And then Annihilate cleaned up the endgame. Also, actually, maybe in hindsight, we should have had a fighting move on Deoxys, so we weren't just walled by Greninja. E-Speed is nice for, like, if it already has Battle Bond, but I did have Draining Kiss on Comfy for that, so probably just having Superpower was better, so I could actually threaten it. But we ended up winning, and that's all that matters. Alright, so that's a quick recap of all the teams we brought. So a couple interesting things. The first that I wanted to point out is that we brought Alolan Executor more times than Zapdos this season. We brought Alolan Executor to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games, and Zapdos to 1, 2, 3, 4. So is Alolan Executor better than Zapdos? Possibly. So here's the other interesting thing. So Zapdos missing Heat Wave has been a very common occurrence this season. So common, in fact, that I actually went and looked at all the replays and counted. So we used Heat Wave on Zapdos a total of 15 times. So, and we missed Heat Wave 6 times out of that 15. So, 9 out of 15 is a 60% hit rate, essentially. So, Heat Wave is 90% accurate. So, what are the odds of a 90% accurate move hitting only 9 times out of 15? The answer is actually 0.19%. A 0.19% chance for Zapdos to miss that many Heat Waves out of the total that we used. So, Zapdos, it let me down this season. Let's just get into the draft review. And since we're already talking about Zapdos, I'll go a little out of order. You know what? How about we'll go from, like, worst to best? Yeah, Zapdos was definitely the most disappointing Pokemon for me. Zapdos is, like, very annoying when I have to fight against it, because you have to account for static, and it's just, like, so annoying for physical attackers. It's really strong, too, so you need, like, a way to switch into it, but then it can Volt Switch or U-turn and stuff like that. But, I don't know, it just felt like it could just get taken advantage of so easily by, Terra Electric setup Pokemon, that I just never found myself wanting to bring this to a game. I don't know if it just didn't fit that well on our team, or, I mean, I don't know. I just did not enjoy using it. I think, like, Zapdos is one of those Pokemon it always seems to be, like, the best Pokemon of all time when your opponent has it, but when you have it, it never procs static when you want it to. It just doesn't live the hits that you think it will. And, yeah, I don't know. Not too big a fan of Zapdos. I don't think I would draft it again unless, like, there's really nothing better. Like, on paper, it does so much more, but, like, I don't know. I was not a fan. There's also not that much tech you can do with it because its move pool is so limited. I think maybe a Terra Zapdos could be interesting, but it's kind of hard to justify making Zapdos a Terra Captain when it's already got a good defensive typing. And there's just other Pokemon in its price range that you could make a Terra Captain as, and they're just going to be better. So yeah, not a big fan of Zapdos. Speaking of not a big fan, we'll talk about Noivern. Okay, objectively, Noivern is probably worse than No, it's definitely worse than Zapdos. But yeah, Noivern was not good. I thought about bringing it to a couple games. And then, like, when I made the transaction from Noivern to Talonflame, I also looked ahead a little bit to see, would I regret this? Like, maybe Noivern would look good in future matchups. So I just toyed with the idea of, like, bringing Noivern to future games specifically. And I realized I did not want to bring Noivern to any of them. So, like, I don't know. Noivern, it just doesn't do... Like, it just doesn't have enough stats. That's the main thing. Like, its only good stat is speed. And it's just, it's just not strong enough. That's like the only thing. Like, sure, its moves have high base power, but they don't make up for its low special attack enough. And, like, its bulk isn't that high, so, like, to actually make it switch in to strong attackers, you need to compromise its speed, and, like, its speed is the only thing it has going for it. It's got Defog, but, like, Defog is such a bad move in Gen 9 because it's just better to hazard stack, honestly. Like, if you're taking a turn to remove hazards, then you just give up so much momentum. And, like, there are so many offensive Pokemon that threaten to just win the game instantly. And, like, yeah, Defog is just, like, rarely worth it, I think. So, I definitely will not be drafting Noivern again. I think, a Pokemon that's just, like, better than Noivern, like, that's around its price range, would be Cyclizar. Cyclizar is a Pokemon I like a lot because it's got a lot of cool utility moves, like Knock Off, U-Turn, Rapid Spin, and it's got Regenerator. And it's got the same, like, really good speed as Noivern and, like, kind of comparable stats, honestly. But it just has a much better move pool and ability as well. So, definitely think you should pick Cyclizar over Noivern if you want that, like, fast dragon utility mon. I think Cyclizar is better. Alright, so Zapdos and Noivern are definitely at the bottom of the draft. I guess next we can talk a little bit about Chimecho. But okay, Chimecho's a one-pointer. You can't expect too much from it. And what did it do for us? Probably lost us both of the games that we lost, and then we never brought... like, the only games we lost this season are the ones we brought Chimecho to. And it is a one-pointer, so I can't get too upset about it. But, yeah, like... it's a one-pointer for a reason. Now, here's the thing. If Chimecho was a Terra Captain, then I think it could be a lot more interesting, because then Calm Mind stored power sets become a lot more powerful when you can make a much better defensive typing than Psychic, especially combined with Levitate. Like, imagine Terra Poison or Terra Steel, you remove the ground weakness. So, like, if we made Chimecho a Terra Captain... like, if we could afford that, then I think maybe it would be a lot... well, it's not even a maybe. It would be a lot better. And I've definitely seen Terra Chimecho do things, but it's just too inconsistent to justify over, like, Terra Comfy, who we'll talk about later. But it is a one-pointer. I'm not too upset about it, and I probably would draft it again just because it's one of the more usable one-pointers, but, I didn't feel a strong connection to Chimecho, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. I guess now we can talk about Talonflame, who we traded Noivern for, but we only brought Talonflame to one game after that, actually. I think we considered it for at least one other matchup, but I'm forgetting which one. Talonflame is also, like... I think it's better than Noivern, but not by much. The benefit of Talonflame specifically is it matches up better into certain top tiers. Like, it has a really good Iron Valiant matchup, and that's like the main draw for it, I think. Whereas Noivern doesn't really have any of those. Like, sure, it resists water, and there are a lot of water-type top tiers, but it's the water-type top tiers just brute force through Noivern. Whereas Talonflame actually, like, option selects Iron Valiant, the booster speed set specifically. So Talonflame will always have utility there. It's also got, like, fast Will-O-Wisp, which is really nice, and then Flame Body is cool. We never brought it, sure, so, like, I'm pretty neutral on Talonflame, but my opinion of it hasn't really gone down. It hasn't really changed this season, just because it came to the team late. Maybe if we had it instead of Noivern earlier, we would have brought it, like, to one of our earlier games. I'm not sure. But, yeah, my opinion of Talonflame is pretty neutral, because it just wasn't a big team contributor this season. Alright, now Metagross is the next one I want to talk about. Metagross was a little disappointing. If you take a look at the teams of the season, you'll notice Metagross actually didn't come to that many games. It came to the first two matches, then took a long hiatus until the preliminary rounds, and then it came again in finals. So we only brought it to 4 games out of 9, which is kind of crazy for how expensive it was. I believe it was 14 points on this board. I was definitely a big Metagross supporter. Like, when we saw it got Heavy Slam, it got Psychic Fangs, it got Knock Off, all, like, really good buffs for it. But, it's just not enough. I think Steel plus Psychic isn't a great defensive typing, especially without Levitate. I do love Bronzong. I think that's a very good mid-tier. But, Metagross does not have Levitate, so its defensive typing is just not amazing. It has too many weaknesses, and it's just too slow. I do think a Terra Metagross would be really good. And I kind of want to try that eventually. But, yeah. Metagross, like, when it came to the games, it did its job, which was mostly just, I think it was Assault Vest in 3 out of the 4 games, and the other, it was, Focus Sash. And, like, it did what we needed it to do, but, like, nothing more, nothing less. It didn't really impress me. It's sort of like Talonflame level, I think, where, it's slightly disappointing, but, yeah, it just wasn't worth the amount of points we paid for it on this board. I think it definitely should be cheaper. All right, so what have we talked about? Zapdos, Noivern, Metagross, Chimecho, Talonflame, right? So that leaves Deoxys, Annihilate, Tinglu, Tentacruel, Comfey, and Alolan Executor. All right, so next we'll talk about Tentacruel. And I do like Tentacruel. A lot of people hate it for some reason. Just because it's... Like, the thing about Tentacruel is it compresses so many Draft League specific desirable traits. Like, it's got Hazard Control, it's a Grounded Poison, it's a Water Resist, an Ice Resist, a Fire Resist, a Fairy Resist. It's got Toxic Spikes as well. Like, it's just like... It's got a nice speed tier, it's got good special defense, it's a bulky water, another buzzword. And, like, all those things are true. It's just not the best at any of those things, which is why people don't really like it, because it's got low special attack. It's very frail physically. But I liked Tentacruel. We actually brought it pretty often. 1, 2, 3... Oh, maybe not. 4, 5? Yeah, 5 out of 9. And it was... We brought it more times than Metagross, and it was cheaper than it as well. I think it's a pretty good Gloomon. And the speed tier lets you be a little creative with it. Like, we brought offensive Tentacruel more than once, and even though it has very low special attack, the high speed sort of lets you get away with it. And it's got a pretty good move pool. So, I do like Tentacruel. I would draft it again. It's not super impressive, but I think it's worth the money you pay for it. And it like filling all the boxes it does is very nice for a Draft League player. All right. So, is now when we talk about Alolan Executor? Nah, let's talk about Comfey first. Comfey was a very good second Terra Captain. I sort of spread misinformation with it, though. I believe in our draft analysis, I said, like, Leech Seed was boosted by Triage, but it isn't. So that already made it worse. I thought it had priority Leech Seed, and if it did, it would be a lot better, but it just doesn't. And then another thing that I didn't realize was that Draining Kiss only gets the Terra base power buff if you're Terra Fairy specifically. And I don't think we ever brought that, so we just never really took advantage of it. So that's also just not something that we used it for. And we did want to Terra Annihilate most games, which makes sense. It's just a better Pokemon. But Comfey definitely popped off in a couple games, especially that the first one with Mr. M. Comfey saved us from losing to Pikachu, and I believe versus Revius, Comfey would have won, but we just won before it got the chance to set up. Yeah, it's pretty reliable with Calm Mind. The priority Draining Kiss and Giga Drain both is really nice because a lot of top tiers are weak to Fairy and Grass, actually. You might not think about Grass, but like think of all the water type top tiers like Palafin or Greninja. Okay, Greninja's weak to Fairy too, but you know what I mean. Like Giga Drain has its merits as well. And it's pretty nice versus the Rain team to have that option. So I did enjoy Comfey. I'd definitely take it again. Probably not without Terra, though. I do think it kind of needs Terra to be a threat. If it has Terra, your opponent kind of has to respect it a little bit. But if it doesn't have Terra, then your opponent has consistent counterplay to it. And it doesn't have high immediate power. So they don't have to worry about it as much. I think it's definitely good value, though. But only if you Terra it. Alright, so now it's down to the final four. And I believe coming in fourth place will be Tinglu. So, Tinglu is like... It might be the second best ground type in this generation, honestly. Which is like that's a bold claim. It's obviously not better than Great Tusk. Great Tusk is clearly the best ground type. That's not up for debate. Then you get into the realms of like Garchomp and Iron Treads. I think it's definitely better than Iron Treads. especially in an 11 Pokemon team context, where role compression isn't as important as it is in 8mon. And this was an 11mon format league, so I definitely enjoyed Tinglu a lot there. But even in 8mon, Tinglu is amazing. It just lives any attack you want it to. Like, it's impossible to Oko unboosted. Like, it just is. And it's so naturally bulky that you can just run, like, max attack on this, especially with a weakness policy. You can just, like, go crazy with it. It's got 110 attack. Like, that is no slouch, and it's got pretty strong stabs. Earthquake, it's very, very slow, so it can take advantage of payback. Ruination for the Pokemon that it can't hit super hard. It's got Heavy Slam, and it's really heavy. Whirlwind to stop you from setting up on it. It's got both hazards. It's just such a good Pokemon. It's so consistent, too, is the other thing. Like, if you have a Tinglu, then it's like nearly impossible to get swept by a setup sweeper, because they have to have a way to muscle through Tinglu, and the things that can do that are very few and far between. So, I highly recommend taking Tinglu. It's just really, really nice to have. It forces so much prep from your opponent's win cons, and it always contributes something. Like, it'll get up a hazard, or it will get the chip on something you need, or it will check something that you need it to. I highly recommend Tinglu as your ground type of choice. Alright, now we'll talk about Alolan Executor. This is definitely, like, my new... Like, of the Pokemon on the team, this is the one I've gotten the most attached to as, like, the low-tier hero. I think Alolan Executor is legitimately and unironically a very good value pick. I think it's got a really nice stat spread for what you want to use it for, which I think is the Custat Berry Harvest set. I think this is, like, what you should be bringing. If you're bringing Alolan Executor to a match, it should probably be Custat Berry Harvest, and if it's not, you better have, like, a really good reason why it isn't. Like, Life Orb Trick Room is possible as well, but I think Custat Berry is just much better. Like, Endure plus Custap strategies are so strong this generation, with how many, like, fast but frail setup sweepers there are. And the fact that you could potentially get a second Custat Berry makes Alolan Executor have really strong cheese potential, and that's also something that's very valuable this gen. What I do wish I could have done is have Terra Alolan Executor. I think then it would actually be, like, significantly better. Because if you could shed its awful Grass Dragon typing, then suddenly the Trick Room sets get a lot better, because now it can actually, like, live a hit without a fear of an ice move. It gets new coverage, it boosts its existing coverage. I think Terra Alolan Executor is, like, definitely very unexplored right now. And I would definitely draft Alolan Executor again. Especially, like, I would definitely take it in a serious context as well. So, I am serious when I say I think Alolan Executor is good. Does that mean I think it should be worth more than where it is? No. But I think, like, for the price you get it at, like, 2, 3... Okay, it was 4 points in this league, which is probably a bit of an overpay. But, like, 2, 3 points, I think it's very good value for that price point. If it gets higher, then it's not as good. But, if it stays as cheap as it is, I think it's definitely a good pickup. And now we get to our team captains, Deoxys and Annihilate. They were our first 2 picks. They came to every single game. So which did I like more? It's a tough one. Deoxys has so much tech. Its move pool is so deep. You can do so many creative things with it. We did use it as a revenge killer most of the time. Let's tally it a little bit. Revenge killer / breaker. I'll just say breaker. So, like, breaker versus Mr. M. It was a win con versus Pharaoh, but we never clicked Meteor Beam. Did it even come on the field? I think it did once, but it didn't really do that much. For Cypher, it was a support set with screens, and the slow teleport was nice. Versus Revius, it was a breaker. Versus Soul, it was a breaker. Versus Treestain, the first time it was a Hazards lead, so support. Versus Scion, the first time it was a breaker. Versus Treestain semis, it was a win con. And then versus Scion in the finals, it was a breaker again. So I think it's a really strong breaker, like, primarily. But, like, it has so much versatility. The setup variants are very threatening if you can position them properly. It does require a lot of support because of how low its other stats besides speed are, but you have so much EV flexibility, it's really nice. I definitely think Deoxys is good. I know it at the start of the season, I said, I know that some people think Deoxys speed is a fraud, and then other people think it's broken, and I am neutral because I'd never used it before. Now that I've used it, I definitely think it's very good. I think it is worth the price I paid for it, which I think was 18 points? 19 points? I think it may have been 19. I think 18, 19 point range is where I would price Deoxys. I think it's definitely worth that that price range. It is a little hard to draft around. I will give them that. Because I think our draft was missing some, like... It was missing a little bit of immediate power. This is also something I said in the draft review. So maybe that's why I found myself gravitating toward that breaker Deoxys angle. Because it was my main source of immediate power. So maybe if I had another breaker to support it, I could get more creative with, like, Wincon, Calm Mind, Iron Defense, or Cosmic Power weakness policy sets. All of those could have been interesting. But yeah, I do really enjoy Deoxys. I would definitely draft it again. I think it's very good. But Deoxys was not my favorite Pokemon of the draft. That honor actually does go to Annihilate. And I loved using Annihilate as a Terra Captain. Annihilate was, like, seen as super strong early in the generation. Then, like, there's a period of time when, like, people started saying, oh, it's kind of mid, or it, like, fell off, and then its price started going down. And we're sort of still in that state. But there's a few people, including me, who always thought that Annihilate never stopped being good. People just sort of stopped drafting it. And I honestly don't know why. Well, okay, I do know why. It's that people figured out that, like, the bulk up sets are shut down by Encore, and, like, so many Pokemon have Encore, and, like, Encore is really important this gen because it's consistent counterplay to Terramons, because it doesn't care about what type they are. But then people discovered Choice Scarf, Terrablast, Ghost, and then when people focus on the Choice Scarf sets, the bulk up sets become strong again. I think what's underrated about Annihilate is how well it pairs with Reflect and Light Screen support, because then you can take hits more easily, boost your Rage Fist, and then heal it back with Drain Punch. That makes the bulk up sets a lot more potent. So I think if you take Annihilate, you need to pair it with a very strong screen setter, and we did have that with Deoxys. But Annihilate it's just very versatile as a Wincon. It can run, like, pretty much any Terra type, although I think we only brought 4 different types. We brought Poison once versus Mr. M, but this was a bluff. We were never clicking this. We brought Fighting once versus Scion in the last week for a stronger close combat. But with this also, we didn't put too much thought into this, honestly. It probably could have been something better. And then all the other weeks, we were either Ghost or Water. And those are probably the 2 best types for Annihilate. Just because Water is probably the best defensive type. That or Fairy, but Water is kind of more generally applicable. And then Ghost is its best offensive type, especially because of Terrablast Ghost. But then also Terra Ghost on a bulk up set is pretty underrated because Rage Fist gets boosted like to absurd levels. So yeah, Annihilate was our team MVP this season. It got 18 kills total, if I remember correctly. Deoxys came in second with 11 kills. But yeah, Annihilate was our clear MVP. It won us the season. It won us a lot of games on its own. It took a little bit to get going. Like, it didn't really do much in the first week. Then it had like a moderate showing in the second week. Then by the third week, it started becoming a dominant presence in our teams, and I really enjoyed it. I also think Annihilape's a type of Pokemon that I am personally very comfortable using. It's definitely like my kind of style. I don't really know what my style is, I just know that Annihilape is part of it, and I would definitely draft Annihilape again. I think it's pretty underrated. Yeah, like sort of what I said, where people just sort of stopped taking it because the bulk up set wasn't as good as it used to be. But I think Annihilape itself is still very good, and I think it's pretty anti-meta. Just because, like, if you can position Annihilape well, the types of Pokemon that you're seeing nowadays, like I'm talking specifically about the Ogrepons and Terrapagos, the new DLC guys. So like Annihilape just on its own naturally hard counters Terrapagos. Terrapagos can't do anything to it. Besides like Toxic or Dazzling Gleam, those are its best options. And then Annihilape has ways around those, especially with Terra. And then the Ogrepons, their issue is they have limited coverage options. And you can go a defensive Terra type that walls the Ogrepon's stabs, and then the Ogrepon's stabs will boost your Rage Fist. And you're bulky enough to like withstand the Ogrepons. And sure, they have Encore to stop the bulk upset, but you can just like click Rage Fist in front of them. Or like be Mental Herb maybe. But I do think Terra Annihilape has a very good matchup into the Ogrepons and Terrapagos if you can play it right, and that's why I think it's pretty anti-meta. But all right, that's all the Pokemon individually. As for the draft as a whole, I definitely liked using it. It's probably not my favorite draft I've ever used, but like that's a pretty high bar to clear. But I definitely enjoyed it. Particularly Deoxys, Annihilape, and Alolan Executor. Another cool thing about this draft is I actually had never used any of these Pokemon before except for Ting-Lu. All the other Pokemon I'm actually, this is my first time drafting. Actually, did I ever draft Talonflame before? No. Yeah, I didn't. So only Ting-Lu was a Pokemon I had drafted before. And I knew Ting-Lu was good already, but all these other Pokemon, first time using. So I do like picking new things when I draft stuff, because it's good to get variety. It keeps things fresh. But I am running out of Pokemon to try out. Annihilape was the Pokemon I wanted to try out most going into this league, and Deoxys as well. Like during the draft, I knew my first two picks were Deoxys and Annihilape. I did not care what order in the draft I was in. Those would be my first two picks if they were available to me. So that is what I did, and then I built the team around them. As for what's next, I don't know. But that will actually be the end of the Soul Draft League series. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. I also hope you maybe got something out of it. I always try to share a little educational content about Draft League, some tips and tricks for team building, showing the team building process. I know a couple people have actually reached out to me and said they enjoy the team building videos and that they've been helpful. So I definitely appreciate that. And where do we go from here? So I don't have any like leagues going on right now. There's a strong chance I'll be participating in DCL, which is the big Smogon Draft League team tournament. It's like the big prestigious one. I was in it last year, and I am probably going to be in it again this year, but it's obviously not certain yet because it hasn't started. But so my attention for Draft League will probably be dedicated to that within the next few weeks. So I don't know what kind of content will be next, but this is definitely not the end of the channel. I definitely want to make some more videos like this, because it's fun. It's just like a nice hobby. And I can't really think of anything else to say, so I believe that will be that. So once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in whatever comes next. Bye-bye.